So I would like to discuss who in my opinion is one of the more higher ranking people in this program, this MK Ultra program that targets me. And his name is Ed Magilton. That's the name that he used when he was introduced to me. Ed Magilton's name is Stephen Root. I recognized him in a movie called Everything Must Go. He had a small part in that movie, and I looked him up. And he also played in that movie called Office Space. He played a big, nerdy character that was being picked on at the office where he worked at. So here are a few photographs off of his Facebook page. And in my opinion, he is somewhat an unusual looking man. He has somewhat large eyes that are spread far across his face, so that he has something like a frog-like appearance, and his eyes are glazed over. Very frequently in these photographs, he looks like he is under mind control. Also on his Facebook page are a series of photographs taken by somebody who appears to be in some sort of hypnotic daze. This guy is not only taking photographs of the outside of restaurants and vehicles and like lights, but they're having such an impact on Ed Magilton that he's uploading them onto his Facebook page. So that suggests somebody who is on drugs or is going into trances while involved in the MK Ultra program. So like many operatives in the MK Ultra program, these guys will continue to appear throughout your life in somewhat different disguises. They'll put on wigs or change the way they dress at the very least. Sometimes they even use a sophisticated makeup system that's something like a mask that uses like silicone or rubber pieces that are glued to their face, like in a Hollywood makeup studio. But this is high-level gang stalking, and these guys will consider themselves your handler. And they also stalk people because they have to, quote, get into their head. That is what they say. They want you to notice them so that later, when you are connected to the radio frequency energy technology that they use, the mind control radio frequency technology, part of your subconscious mind has already seen them and acknowledged them and focused on them, so there's something of a connection. So these people might tell you in their car, if you go on a long drive, they'll be behind you for quite a ways of the drive. And then when you get to that area, these people with government clearances will play the role of some sort of employee that you have to deal with. If you get somewhere and you've made reservations at a hotel, they'll place someone at the front desk. They'll place somebody in some sort of corporate entity, because the US government has bought up most of the large corporations in America so that they're one entity. Corporations, the government, and the military are all one entity. And the only thing they want to do now is to target the American public with these mind control programs. And anybody who seems to be intelligent or have a lot of morals and will attempt to resist their programming. They want to resist selling their business. They want to resist selling their property. Attempt to resist their takeover. They are deemed a threat and a target by this government, military, corporate apparatus. And Ed Magilton, in my opinion, is right at the top of that apparatus. So he was first introduced to me by my father around the year 1999 when I was looking for a condo to buy. I had a girlfriend named Kim, and we heard that the prices of condos had gone down. So instead of renting an apartment, we should look into buying a condo, because sometimes if you get a mortgage, it will be cheaper than paying a rent and you'll own something. So Ed Magilton was introduced to me by my father, who is also an operative in the MK Ultra program. He's also a part of this. So he introduced me to Ed Magilton, his friend Ed Magilton, who is an excellent real estate agent and would be more than happy to help me find a condo. So he had an office out of Brookfield, and we agreed to meet one day, and I got into his car. So Ed Magilton asked if I knew his daughter Melanie Magilton, who also went to Brookfield High School, and she was in my graduating class of 1993. I think I may have had 1 or 2 classes with her. And I said, yeah, I know Melanie. She was in one of my classes. But that was all I knew to say about her. So both Ed Magilton and Melanie Magilton are both professional actors. And Melanie Magilton's professional actor name is Amy Smart. Melanie Magilton was a very quiet girl. I think I may have had 1 or 2 classes with her. And she was the type of girl that would act so shy. It was as if something was wrong. She acted depressed and she acted withdrawn. And now that I look back, it looked as if she was being abused. She demonstrated the signs of being abused. She never smiled. She never laughed. She never made eye contact. A couple times when the teacher called on her, she would kind of whisper the answer. But other than that, she seemed depressed and withdrawn and acted as if something was wrong at home. So what is kind of funny is that Melanie is an attractive girl. So you'd think that she would have acted a little bit more positive or optimistic when she was in school, but she didn't. So as far as I remember, I did not see a lot of properties with Ed. I think there were only maybe 7 or 8 properties that he showed me. So Ed Magilton had a property available in Brookfield, Connecticut that we ended up getting a mortgage for. And it was a basement condo. It was on the ground floor, I should say. It was on the same level as the storage facilities in that condo building. But if you looked out the back windows, you would be on the ground floor and you would see the trees. So it was a nice apartment, but it had mold because I remember how that condo smelled. And when I moved into it, I thought, hey, that's just the smell of a basement condo. That's how basements smell. But the truth was that it didn't have to smell like that just because it was on the ground floor. So what they will do is they will sell you houses that have mold growth in it because the mold growth affects your respiratory system. The mold growth will affect your nervous system. And in a weakened state, you are more susceptible to this radio frequency mind control. The military has found that healthy people are often the toughest to program and to sabotage their life. So you can always tell if you have mold in your house, if it smells like an old cabin, if it smells like a basement. Everybody knows what a basement smell is. It kind of smells like stale water or an old cabin. So you need to go to work cleaning everything with an ammonia solution, which is 1 cup of ammonia to 1 gallon of water. And you spray that all over your house. And I have a video that explains the whole process called Mold, utilized as a biological weapon, that will explain how to get the mold out of your house. So that was the property that Ed Magilton had available for me, with condominium with mold all inside of it. So the one thing I want to add about Ed before we move on to the next part of this discussion, Ed Magilton acted a little unusual, and the only way I could describe it is that he acted very immature for his age. He acted like he was a 7-year-old. That's the only way I could describe it. He acted like a big kid, a big child, and he would look at you and try to put on this very wide-eyed, innocent look, like he was just as good-natured as he could be. And it came across as looking very childish. And I don't want to insult anybody who may be more quiet and not like to make a lot of useless conversation. Ed Magilton acted as if he wasn't ever used to talking to anybody. And that's kind of odd for a guy that was supposedly in the real estate business. He was a salesman for something like his whole life, he told me. It was like hanging out with a 7-year-old who was real quiet and shy and didn't know what to say. So I want to tell you people that this is the way these people act who are part of the MK Ultra program. As you are going to hear in the rest of this video, I saw Ed again and again when I moved up to the state of New Hampshire. And members of the MK Ultra program are not doing that because they just want to check you out and see what type of clothes you're wearing that day, or what type of car you're driving, or what music you're into. They are stalking you for criminal reasons, for conspiracy to commit fraud and murder. That's the only reason why they will follow you. So these people are not normal. What they have planned for you is far from normal. A lot of these men are victims of sexual abuse while they were growing up. They were raised by pedophiles and in turn became pedophiles themselves. And how these men act is very childish when they try to act very innocent or very normal. It's like a personality that they put on, a front personality. It comes across as being immature, like a big kid. So out of all the people I met in my life, this guy is the one that acted most unusual. And it's almost pathetic how they act. I almost felt sorry for him. And at the time I thought, hey, this is some guy who is very quiet. Maybe he is nervous. So he's just a big, gentle guy. But when I caught him stalking me and following me up to New Hampshire when I moved up here, I realized that this is how a lot of these perpetrators act to gain people's trust. When they're part of the MK Ultra program and they've been sexually abused and programmed, part of their intellect, part of their mind freezes at a very young age. And that is often the personality that they try to show to people to gain their trust. So they come across as being like big kids or very immature. So I want to warn everybody about how they act. So we would go look at properties and he would kind of stand by the door and just kind of stare at me with this wide-eyed, weird look in his eyes. He just had a weird look to him that wasn't normal. If you look at a lot of these photographs that he's put up on his Facebook page, you can kind of see what I'm talking about. If you look at this picture, it doesn't look like a 60 or 65-year-old man. He looks like a 15-year-old kid, the expression on his face. So that is one of the signs that you can look out for. So if you haven't yet, I would recommend watching the documentary called Under Fire, Radio Frequency Warfare. And that should catch you up with a lot of information about their technology, because it is not what people think, because there is a lot of disinformation on the internet concerning radio frequency technology. People think the radio frequency technology has to do with a physical chip, a physical microchip that's inserted in people's brains, and then they are controlled with that chip. But it is not like that. So instead of repeating a lot of stuff, I would recommend watching that documentary, because what I'm going to talk about in this video is more of an advanced or cutting edge report. And some of the stuff I will say in this report might sound outlandish if you know nothing about radio frequency mind control. But people's brains and their nervous system are much like a receiver on your cable box or on your TV or through your internet, and information could be directed to you through an energy wave, and your brain, acting as a receiver, can pick up that information. And that is the nature of their mind control program. So what they find works best is that they have a transmitter, and that is another person, one of their agents, who knows that they are connected to you. And through this energy wave, through this connection, They will act as the transmitter and you will act as the receiver. And the U.S. military and this government corporate enterprise are highly involved in this. This is the only thing that they are interested in. And none of this is used for anything benevolent or positive. It ranges from disgusting, what they do, simply disgusting and stupid, to downright evil when they use this technology for military applications. They are only interested in hurting and driving people crazy with this technology. This technology could also be used to help people, but it is not. The only people that they care to help are their sadistic, mentally retarded agents, and they use this technology to help them appear more normal in public and to help them fool everybody else. Quite often, if you are a target of this technology, you are dead within a matter of months. But I have managed to resist this for going on a decade now. Over a decade. So I know what I'm talking about. And I know exactly what they do. And I know what signs to look for. So a strange thing that I have noticed is that if they have an operative that gets in your space and that you have to hang out with them, quite often you'll be sitting there in a car with them, for example, and all of a sudden it's like they are breathing on you and that you could smell their breath even though that they're sitting across the car from you. And that was the case with Ed Magilton back in 1999. And whenever I got into the car, all I could do was smell his breath. When we went out looking for different condominiums for sale, when I would get into his vehicle, all I could do was smell his breath, even though he was seated a few feet away. And I would say to myself, he has strong breath. And it would smell like a caramel mixed with mud. It wasn't a good smell. And it would give me something of a headache. So this happened with two other agents. One was Rudy Siegel, who I spoke about in the Flower of Life series. And I picked him up one day at his house in Connecticut to drive him back to New Hampshire so he could do some carpentry work at my house. And as soon as he got in the vehicle, he looked like he was hungover. And even though he was across the car from me, I could smell his breath like he was only a few inches away. And it stunk like tobacco and alcohol and bad breath. And I realized then that it was due to the fact of this radio frequency technology and the nature of attaching the transmitter, this idiot handler, to the receiver, to their target, who was me. And the last example I have was this person named Aaron Stubbs, who lives across the street from my ex-wife Rachel. So I picked up my daughters for Halloween one night to bring them trick-or-treating around the block. And Aaron Stubbs invited herself along, her and her two children, her two daughters, who are around the same age as my daughters. They are a little bit younger than my daughters. And once again, when Erin got into the car, she was sitting all the way in the back seat. And after a second, I smelled her rank breath of the effects of tobacco on someone's lungs. And even though Erin was sitting in the back seat, it was like she was sitting right next to me, breathing on me with her lips a few inches away from my face. So that is a sign to look for when you are around some of these worst agents who are attempting to connect themselves to you. You will notice that. So I would guess it was around January or February of 2013. And I was living in Shelton, Connecticut. And I would drive up to Keene, New Hampshire and get a room at the hotel so that I could see my kids for the weekend. And during the winter months, I would stay at the Best Western because it had a nice pool. And at that time, my kids were still young. Kayla was 5 or 6, and Eliza was 7 or 8. And they loved going to the pool. So we're down there at the pool one winter day, and it was snowing out, and it was a nice pool because they have these big windows around it, and you could see out into this courtyard, and you could see all the snow out in the courtyard, and we're having a great time in this pool. And then all of a sudden, Frankenstein shows up. Frankenstein with a wig, and this is none other than Ed Magilton, now at the Best Western Hotel in Keene, New Hampshire, in January of 2013. Staying there at the exact same time as I'm staying there. Going to the pool at the exact same time that I'm going to the pool. And he walks in with these giant round eyes spread real far across on his face. And he looks like he is almost borderline retarded. He looks like he is some sort of psycho. And he comes shuffling into the pool with these giant staring eyes. And either he has grown his hair so that his hair is long, or he has some waterproof wig on. And he looks like Frankenstein. He looks like a zombie. He doesn't look too good. And he comes shuffling into the pool, and he gets into the pool. So I try real hard to ignore him. And he starts standing on his hands so that his feet are sticking up out of the water. And then he flips around and he rises to the surface of the water with his giant peering eyes. So I try my best to ignore him. So I'll tell you something strange. After my kids were done playing in the pool, we went back to the room and I put on TV. I put on cartoons for them. And we were watching something like SpongeBob. And ever so often, I guess it may have been part of the SpongeBob program, right before they would cut to commercial, they had a cartoon of a guy that kind of looked like the same guy that we had just seen in the pool, who was Ed Magilton. And it had large eyes spread far on his head. And he had a long, weird wig. It was long hair on the side, and the bangs cut real short across the forehead. And in this cartoon, this guy was breathing real deep, kind of breathing and growling with this psychotic, round-eyed gaze on his face. And then the announcers would show this for a second, and then some announcer would say, "We'll be right back after this commercial break," and it would cut to commercial. So that's not a normal guy in the SpongeBob cartoon. And I don't know why they would have that on the TV, but they did. So that is something strange that happens in the MK Ultra program. When you have the government, the media, and all the corporations together, they have the power to do something like that. The cartoon looked exactly like that idiot in the pool. So I did my best to kind of laugh it off and just ignore that and not worry about that sort of thing too much. But that was another device that they used to try to get into your head, to try to drive you slightly crazy. So that would be my good quote-unquote handler, is guys like Ed Magilton, who looked like a psychotic zombie or a Frankenstein that day. So of course you feel a lot of pain, and the best thing to do while you are going through this is physical exercise. That is why the U.S. military wants people to live in an unhealthy state. They don't want you to exercise. They don't want you to get fresh air. They prefer you to smoke and eat McDonald's. I think the military used to give their soldiers cigarettes to smoke. I think I heard that on certain military bases, the first thing that they moved in is McDonald's, because that is how much the military cares about their soldiers. So they care even less about the citizens of the U.S. And that is the reason they drug you and put mold throughout your homes, because they'll prefer you to sit in your houses all day with all the windows shut, breathing the mold, all the mold spores in the air that are floating around, that are attacking your nervous system and attacking your respiratory system. And you eat McDonald's all day, and you watch TV and smoke cigarettes. And then when they hit you with these directed energy weapons, or try to place you under mind control, it's pretty easy to do, because you are in a very weakened state. you've practically given up already. So the best thing that you could do is get physical exercise. So what helped me during the winter months was swimming at that pool. If it wasn't too cold, I loved to go for long walks, which evolved to jogging. The first thing that you want to do is go for walks. The second thing you want to do is turn those walks into jogs. But of course, all weekend, I would go through bouts of pain, while agents, much like Ed Magilton, would use the radio frequency connection to attempt to cause me pain. They will essentially inflict pain on themselves to get to me. So these guys are often sadomasochists, and they will hold their breath. They will lie on their back and press on their necks. A lot of them have hunchbacks filled with arthritis, and they'll lie on their backs. They will hold their breath, and they'll press on their hunchbacks, and they'll give people extreme neck, back, and shoulder pain. They'll give them shortness of breath, what will feel like shortness of breath. They will essentially hurt themselves. They become something like human voodoo dolls. I've seen some of these people throwing up. They're inducing themselves to throw up. So they're convulsing and they're having fits while connected to you. So they're throwing up. They're holding their breath. They're crying. They're rolling around on their backs. This is your British and your American government officials behaving like this. They are babies. They are infants. This is what they do, to the point that they drive someone hysterical, and then they're able to arrest that person, or secretly arrest that person, or abduct that person, and then kill them in one of their secret society rituals. That is the highlight to all their mind control. That is the reason to their mind control. That is the ultimate military application for this radio frequency technology, is they ultimately get to abduct you and kill you. So these agents turn themselves into human voodoo dolls and end up acting like childish idiots. And when they're connected to you, this has an impact over your life. You are infected with their temper tantrums, with their rage, with their convulsions, with their holding their breath to get you to panic or to mirror them and also hold your breath. They will do whatever they can to get to you. So the only way to defeat this is through physical exercise, yoga, and to stay calm. And I do not want to repeat a bunch of stuff that's already been explained in the Under Fire video series. But exercise is what defeats these connections. They are bombarding you with energy. They are bombarding you with particles. And these particles will end up building up in your body. And these people develop tumors and growths and hunchbacks and arthritis due to this radiation, due to them radiating particles at you to read your mind, to control you. So these particles build up into tumors and arthritis. So your body is an energy system. So the only way to get this stuff out of you is to keep your energy system healthy, keep your body healthy, and keep exercising. And these tumors and this arthritis and this stuff will not build up. That is the secret to maintaining a youthful appearance, is exercise. People who have always kept in shape tend to look young, even when they get up to be about 70 or 80. They don't look their age. That is why the current U.S. government, together with the media and all these corporations, want people to live unhealthy lifestyles. They want them super fat. They're encouraging everybody to be overweight. And the reason people are overweight is because they get no exercise. And if you feel like crap, then take their drugs to feel better. Go take a wonder drug to feel better. The doctor will never tell you that the reason you feel bad is because you're fat, you don't exercise, you smoke a pack a day, and you never open your windows all winter and fall long. so that you never get fresh air inside your house and you're slowly suffocating. The medical establishment will never tell you that because they want you all dead. Because England hates you. The US military hates you. And the US government hates you. And they want millions of you dead. I am not joking when I say that they only want the most psychotic, the most sadistic, and the most low IQ people working for them. If you don't fit those categories, they do not want you working for them. Every single one of these people in the US government, all of these people you see on TV as media personalities, as anchor people, as reporters, all these politicians, all of the actors, they are all sadistic, psychotic, or have low intelligence. A lot of them are basically robots. They are programmed and guided around through this radio frequency energy technology as if they are robots. So you may have noticed throughout my recordings, I record the audio off of a video camera. I just point the camera into the room and I record the audio because it's much better than the microphone I have on my computer. So I don't know if you've noticed it, but you might hear a clicking noise, a clicking or tapping noise during some of my recordings. I'll try to simulate it. So that is another sign. Whenever I turn on my camera to do a recording, quite often I'll talk for a sentence or two, and if you listen closely, the camera picks up some background noise that sounds like a clicking. So that is some of their technology and the way it sounds. I guess it may be something like what people would hear when they were getting scanned in a hospital, in the radiation department. I guess a CAT scan may be one of them. But if you've ever seen the procedure where somebody lies down on a table and they put their head inside a circular machine. There's a machine that looks like there is a circular opening for the people's head to go into. And there is some other radiology equipment in the hospital. And what you'll hear is a clicking or a tapping noise when they turn that medical equipment on. So I think it's because this technology is very similar to that medical equipment used in the radiology departments at the different hospitals. So this is old footage, I think from an old CNN report, and they show one of these radio frequency energy machines from like the 70s or early 80s. And when they turn it on, it's the same noise. I guess you could hear it pretty good in this video because they're standing right next to it videotaping it. So it's kind of like a clicking or a tapping noise.
Delgado's research has so far been limited to animals. But in the Soviet Union, a radio frequency, or RF device, has been used for over 30 years to manipulate the moods of mental patients. It's called a LIDA machine. It radiates pulses of radio frequency energy, as well as light, sound, and heat. The pulse rate is in the extremely low frequency range, between 0 and 100 pulses per second.
So that is some of their technology and the way it sounds. And they connect agents to you, and you could smell them. You could smell their breath. You will feel pain as they induce pain onto themselves. If one of them happened to go jogging, you might feel the sensation of a rapid heartbeat. because you're sensing somebody who's jogging, even though that you're just sitting there. So they could freak certain people out who think that their heart all of a sudden is going into an elevated pulse rate, an elevated or a fast heartbeat, even though they're just sitting there. And so that will make them nervous, and if they get more and more scared, their heartbeat will start to go faster. So this is what they use with this technology. When they started bothering me very earnestly in the year 2017, I was the target of their directed energy weapons. And those hurt a lot, especially because I had developed implants around my neck. It got to the point where when I was driving, I could barely turn my head to look over my shoulder. And I had told myself, you know what? I'm approaching my mid-40s and I'm getting old and I'm doing a lot of push-ups. So that's just what happens when you get older. You all see the guys in the gym walking around very rigid. They're just old, hard guys too. But nothing is further from the truth. Once I started doing more cardiovascular exercise like running and doing yoga, deep breathing exercises, all of that material that had built up around my neck and back, that's something like arthritis, all of that cleared away. And now I have full range of motion in my neck again. So all of that happened to me due to their radiation, due to their technology, and attaching agents like Ed Magilton to me. So some of these agents have so much arthritis in them. And these are young men. These are guys in their 30s and 40s. And they got hunchbacks like they're in their 90s. Some of these guys look like they have no necks. And their heads are coming out the center of their chests. And their hunchbacks extend over the tops of their heads. And this is all something like arthritis and cellulite. And this is all due to their radiation, to their directed energy weapons, and their radio frequency mind control. They get all their people to look like this. What these people also do is they spend their life in a daze, in a trance. That is another code word for MK Ultra, is trance. And you'll notice their agents, because they walk around with their eyes kind of bugged out, kind of gawking open with a glazed or dazed look to their eyes, as if they are daydreaming. You ever see someone staring into space, daydreaming? That is how these agents spend their entire lives. And a big part about this is because they are all hooked to senior agents of the CIA, to senior agents of the Freemasons, to senior agents of the military. Some of these senior agents are in nursing homes. A lot of them are just parked in front of their TV sets, and they are hooked to the gills on drugs. They are all on OxyContin medication. They are all on painkillers. They are all on whatever drug they can get from their psychiatrists. And because of this, they spend their life in a trance. And when these important, high-level senior agents attach themselves to all the younger ones, you get a race of these frog-like people that have their eyes hanging open, that go through their life in a daydream. If the energy does not affect them enough, these agents that are all hooked to painkillers and all hooked to these drugs will definitely cause everybody else to walk around in a trance or in a daze, because the whole point is to destroy everybody, to break everybody. So they do not want healthy people who are not on drugs handling people's problems. They want the most out of shape, the most psychotic and sadistic people in control of these programs that destabilize their own government, that destabilize their own country, and then get everybody killed. That's what they use these energy systems for. So let's say we had a benevolent government. What could they use these energy systems for in a benevolent way? Let's say this nice guy over here has terrible arthritis, or he has trouble walking because he has problems with his leg. Instead of hooking to him some fat, psychotic retard who's sitting in his room all day, staring at a wall, eating McDonald's, chain-smoking cigarettes, and snorting Oxycontins, watching TV all day, instead of that guy, they hook him to a guy like me. And I spend my life keeping my mind very calm, really concentrating on what's important. And I exercise all the time. So while he's hooked to me, I keep my mind very calm and very concentrated, and then I might do physical exercise and try to get out whatever arthritis or whatever is building up in my leg or in my back, or whatever I could sense is bothering this guy that I am connected to. So that is a positive handler. That is somebody who could truly handle somebody's problems. That is somebody I truly want in control of my government and my military. But instead we have a bunch of ravenous, sadistic, drug-addled retards. And they do not like giving up their position in the world. The worse they are, the more money they get. The worse things they do for America, the more England wants to pay them. Because England does not like America. They did not like the Revolutionary War. They did not like us breaking apart from them because they were tyrants and forming our own government. And we stopped buying slaves from the British East India Slave Company. And we formed the middle class. And we formed a great country that every other country around the world admired and wanted to emulate. So England, the royal families and their religious cults that control England always hated us for that. So they want to put into power in America the worst people that they could find, the most ignorant, greedy, psychotic, losers that they could find is who they promote. And oftentimes these people that you see in these high-ranking positions in the U.S. government, in the media, in the different corporations, and in the military are actually from England. They are agents of England. They are English military agents that have gone to boarding school in America. They speak with an American accent, but they are actually English. They are English military agents, and they're here to destabilize America. So the grand finale was that in 2021, in August of 2021, I'm putting in a retaining wall in the front of my house. Whoever had built the retaining wall did it in a way that would cause problems. So everything had to be redone. So my front porch was sitting on this retaining wall. So I had to build basically new legs, new supports that I put in concrete footers. And I bracketed onto my deck to suspend my deck, to hold up my deck while I dug all the earth out from underneath my deck. Whoever put in the retaining wall originally failed to put in a drainage system. So all the water was being directed to the front of my house and this retaining wall, and the water was building up, and it would freeze during the winter. The water would expand and it would slowly crumble the retaining wall, and there were cracks within the retaining wall where sand was spilling out of these cracks because for some reason they also dumped a dump truck full of sand in my front yard, which they decided to build the deck on. So if you dig down a foot, you're going to hit 5 feet of sand. So the local establishment, in the form of the people that run the different gravel pits, made it their life's mission to get me the wrong building materials, to deliver the wrong gravel, so that I couldn't put in a proper drainage system. So I asked for drainage gravel, washed gravel, that would be used for a drainage system behind a retaining wall. And what they brought was dirt and sand mixed with gravel. So if I used what they brought, all of the dirt would get into my drainage pipe. None of the water would be able to drain through the gravel because it was all jam-packed with nothing but sand and dirt. By just using gravel, the water could go through the spaces between the gravel, down to the drainage pipe, and be taken away. But they essentially brought gravel mixed with dirt and sand, and they dumped it on my driveway. After lying to me 2 times, I explained it to the guy at the gravel pit. He knew exactly what I wanted. And then before the guy dropped the gravel on the driveway, the dump truck driver, I repeated to him, that has to be just gravel. He said, yeah, that's what we got, just gravel. Then he dumped it on my driveway and he drove away. When I looked in the truck, it looked okay. And it was like just the top looked like gravel. It was like somebody dumped gravel mixed with dirt in the guy's truck and sat there with a hose kind of rinsing off the top of the shit pile so that it looked like washed gravel when underneath was all sand and dirt. So that's what the local establishment does to me when I try to fix the drainage problem in front of my house in August of 2021. So I went back and got my money back from the St. Pierre quarry. So he gave me the money back, but he refused to pick the material off of the driveway. So we put, so my mom was staying over. She was staying over at the house for a few months this summer. And she put an ad in the local, I forget the name of the website she used, OfferUp. She put the ad in the website called OfferUp that said if anybody wants 3 yards of gravel mixed with sand, that will be ideal for, let's say, a road or a driveway. Bring your truck here and pick it up for free. So none other than Ed Magilton showed up. And he showed up with a truck and a Home Depot trailer. It was opened and he lined it with a tarp. And I grabbed my wheelbarrow and we shoveled that crap that Brad from St. Pierre sent over here into wheelbarrows and then dumped it into the back of his trailer. And he said his name was Joe or something. But it was actually Ed Magilton, this same individual here. Once again, I got these photos off of Ed Magilton's Facebook page. 2 other things that are important to discuss is that there is a very important documentary. It's an investigative documentary called Blood Hill. It has a lot of evidence of MK Ultra abuse and some of the games that they play on people. So I began to locate these areas through a lottery system. And it started off is that I wanted to go door to door handing out flyers for my book, to advertise my book. I wrote a great book called Leech Mob, a novel about a Connecticut gang, and it wasn't getting too many sales. I wasn't selling too many books. And when I went door to door, the people were not very receptive, and I wasn't able to sell many books even though I was going door to door, handing out flyers that advertised my different websites and the audiobook. So I said, you know what? I need to come up with a lottery system to select certain areas at random. And maybe I might have better luck running into regular people who might like my book. So I began to use a lottery system to select areas at random. I would write down a bunch of towns on cards, and I would pick a card at random. And then I would use 4 dice cubes to pick a neighborhood that I would go to when I would get to these towns. And due to that, I began to find areas that looked like they contained signs that something was not right with that area. I don't think that this happened by random anymore. The more I found, the more I considered this an act of God. What is known as an act of God. That I found all these areas. This was not just by random. areas contain signs that there may be something like ritual abuse or occult murder happening in those areas. They all contain something like a piece of evidence that something wrong was happening in these areas. So I no longer think that I found all of these areas at random by using a lottery system. I don't think that this happened by random anymore. The more I found, the more I consider this an act of God, what is known as an act of God, that I found all these areas. This was not just by random. So what people have called angels in past times, I think they'll begin to understand are benevolent extraterrestrials, human extraterrestrials. That is what has been called angels through the centuries. That reality, an advanced human extraterrestrial civilization. So an important area that I located by this method was this area presented in a documentary called Blood Hill. So I remember that day when I first drove into that area. And do you know what I smelled when I drove into that area and started my investigation? That you could see in part 1 of Blood Hill was the same smell that I smelled in Ed Magilton's car. It was Ed Magilton's rank breath. It smelled something like a combination of dirt and caramel. It's a rather unpleasant smell. And that was what I smelled when I drove into that area. So these people are extremely regimented. The U.S. military is extremely compartmentalized. Everybody is on a need-to-know basis. They say that the left hand does not need to know what the right hand is doing. Nobody has any idea what other MK Ultra programs are doing in different parts of the country or world. And when I drove into that area of Cobb Hill in Nelson, New Hampshire, and the surrounding towns, and I sensed Ed Magilton, I sensed that smell. That is a pretty good sign that Ed Magilton is involved in controlling that area of Cobb Hill and Blood Hill. Ed Magilton may be in control of that area. It became obvious when I drove into that area and smelled Ed Magilton. I do not know how more honest and specific I could get than that. If that sounds unusual, I tried to explain how that works. That was the guy they wanted connected to me through the radio frequency technology when I drove into that area. That was somebody who was most likely very familiar, if not controlling that area. And in my opinion, that is one of the worst areas that I have exposed. I have photographs taken off of Coldwell Banker in 2015, and I kept them because they were so weird looking. At that time I was living in Waterbury, Connecticut on Walnut Street, and I would find houses that were in my price range, and some of these photographs looked so bizarre that I began to take video of them. And these were from Nelson. Before I moved up to New Hampshire, they had a couple of houses for sale near the Cobb Hill area in Nelson. I took video of those photographs because the houses looked so weird. Like this one. It doesn't get more creepy looking than this place, with this weird photograph of a black chair with a rope hanging from the ceiling with what looks like feathers or something tied to this rope. It suggests somebody who is psychotic taking photographs of a house for sale in the area. That would be used to imprison somebody in. It's something like an inside joke between these psychos who actually live in these houses in this area. And the inside joke is that John is trying to buy a house in New Hampshire. He knows nothing about New Hampshire, and the only reason he wants to come up here is because he wants to be closer to his two daughters who live up here with their mom. So John knows nothing about the area. So what a joke it is that he's looking for houses to buy. So let's show him a couple of weirdo houses that we run, where we possibly torture and kill people at. And that'll be a place that is in John's price range. So it's a big joke with these sadistic weirdos involved in these U.S. military mind control programs like MK Ultra New Hampshire. So it doesn't look too good. So I also had run-ins with Ed Magilton's daughter named Melanie Magilton, who also went to Brookfield High School, and she was in my graduating class of 1993. And Melanie Magilton was a very quiet girl, and she was the type of girl that would act so shy. It was as if something was wrong. She acted depressed, and she acted withdrawn. And now that I look back, it looked as if she was being abused. She demonstrated the signs of being abused. She never smiled. She never laughed. She never made eye contact. So both Ed Magilton and Melanie Magilton are both professional actors. Melanie Magilton acted under the name of Amy Smart. Many years later, in the summer of 2013, I was living in Derby, Connecticut at 346 Derby Avenue in a tenement house, in a house that had rooms for rent. So I was on an adult video site, a pornography site, and there was a woman in that video. And at that time, I did not recognize who that was, but she was Melanie Magilton. And in that video, she is lying on a bed, and she is naked, and she is having sex with a man. And the way the video is filmed, you cannot see his head. They go out of their way to film just the girl and the man's body, as if they did not want his head to appear on film for whatever reason. And the girl is making weird expressions, like she is uncomfortable doing this, like it's almost painful to have sexual relations with this guy. She continues to kind of cringe throughout this film. So I thought it was kind of unattractive to watch. So I turned on something else. It was definitely not the type of video where the girl's so hot and having such a good time that you bookmark it. It was quite the opposite of that. So moving on, I eventually found a house in the Keene, New Hampshire area. And I moved up here so I could be close to my daughters. So I got a little house outside of Keene, a town outside of Keene. And I went to the post office one day. And standing in the post office is a girl that looks somewhat familiar. And now that I think about it, that was the same girl that was in that porn film that I saw when I was living in Derby, Connecticut in the year 2013. And Melanie Magilton is now working at the local post office, my town's post office. And as fate would have it, as soon as I walk in there, even though she's behind the counter, standing about 2 or 3 feet away from me, all I could smell is somebody's rank garlic breath. Much like her father's, this girl's breath is so powerful, you could smell it from 2 or 3 feet away. Either that, or somebody is turning on this radio frequency energy system and attempting to attach her to me so that she could go on to bother me. So after seeing Melanie Magilton at the post office and smelling her rank garlic breath as if she's standing an inch away from me with her lips on my nose talking to me, I go home. And I have a little pet rabbit here. And the only thing that I want to do is go over and stare at my rabbit. And my rabbit looks more cute than he does on any other day in my life. I like my rabbit. I think he's a cool rabbit. But I'm not the type of guy to stare at a cage thinking how cute my rabbit is all day. So I don't know who or what that may be. So then I look at my kitchen and I say to myself, wow, it's pretty messy. I don't wash my dishes every day. I hate kitchen work, but I feel inspired to clean up my kitchen. So I'm cleaning my dishes, I'm washing my cups. And then I hear a little idiotic female-like voice, or more so I sense a little idiotic female's thoughts. And she begins to sing a little idiotic song. So again, this is not me. This is someone else's influence. This is a handler attached to me. I don't have time to stare at how cute my rabbit is. I do not have time to clean my kitchen up every day. And I definitely do not wash my dishes and sing little idiotic songs to myself. So am I going crazy? Am I hearing voices? Am I losing my mind? I must be going crazy. And it gets a lot worse than that, because Melanie Magilton is just warming up. So one of the worst things that you could say in life is that you hear voices. You go tell people that you got a nice room at the state hospital, and then you have a nice little casket at the morgue. But through the MK Ultra program, you could definitely sense their thoughts. It's almost like a telepathic communication. It is a telepathic communication with a bunch of ravenous idiots. They want to hook you to a bunch of ravenous idiots. These people have all lost their minds years ago, decades ago, and their job is to drive you crazy. So the best thing to do is to breathe real deep all day long. And I call this sort of stuff that they're trying to bother you with racing thoughts. When you're connected to these idiotic agents, these handlers, if you will, you're going to be infected with all of their psychosis. You'll be infected with racing thoughts. You will be infected with idiotic thoughts all day long. Things that you don't normally think about will occur to you. So last is this real estate agent shown here. I got her name off of a billboard that was featured in another one of my investigative documentaries. And that was called Snuff Hill. And the investigation started in Hillsborough, New Hampshire. And then it went into a surrounding town. So this woman's name was on a billboard that had been knocked over. It looked like somebody had started a building project. It looked like he had bought a big piece of land, and then he wanted to divide it into sections and build houses. I guess this man was something like a real estate developer, a land developer, and he bought this big section of land. He cut down a lot of the trees in the area and had them removed. He put a street into the area with a cul-de-sac at the end, and then he broke the area up into quite a few different lots that he wanted to sell for houses. Maybe he was going to custom design some of the houses. I don't know. He just had a billboard in that area, and he had a foundation to a structure. But something happened, and he was never able to complete this building project. So I looked up the different names on this billboard that had been knocked down in the area. It kind of looked suspicious. And I found this woman who's a real estate agent. And this is Melanie Magilton. This is the same woman who worked at my town's post office. This is the same woman who was on that adult film that I saw in 2013. I believe that this is Melanie Magilton. So Ed Magilton's daughter, named Melanie Magilton, is calling herself Jane Williams and works at the Manning Williams Agency, a real estate office in Hillsborough, New Hampshire. And I found her name as Jane Williams on a billboard. And she was the real estate agent that you were supposed to contact for more information concerning a project called the Campbell Pond Preserve, where a man named Richard Boyer bought about 50 acres of land, and he divided them into lots. And I guess he wanted to build houses and sell those lots off at a profit. And he called his company for that Granite Settlement Services, LLC. After looking up Richard Boyer, it seems that he had died shortly after starting that project, and he was only 63 years old. And it says on the internet, on his obituary, that after a long period of failing health, Richard Boyer died on December 4th of 2015. and it said that he was predeceased by his son named Ricky Boyer, a brother named Martin Boyer, and a nephew named Jonathan Boyer. So a lot of men are dying in his family, his son, his nephew, and his brother. So I think that is pretty strange that all of these men are dying in this family. And I'm going to guess these men are all very young. If Mr. Boyer has died in December of 2015 and he is 63, my guess is that his sons and his nephews are going to be in their late 30s. So it seems like this family is under attack. So according to that obituary, it said that Mr. Boyer, Mr. Richard Boyer, was the former owner of Granite State Title Services. And for some reason, that was taken over by a group of lawyers who bought that out from the late Richard Boyer. And I guess the main lawyer who did that, he calls himself Philip M. Hastings, and he's from CWB law firm. And right before he died, Richard Boyer attempted to do a land development project. And when he died, that project went under, and nobody else had the will or desire to continue that project. And on his billboard that advertised his project, his land development project, it said, for more information, you could contact Jane Williams. And when I looked her up, she is none other than Melanie Magilton, Ed Magilton's daughter. And if you remember, Ed Magilton was also a real estate agent. That is how I first met him. So these are the people that Richard Boyer was affiliated with right before he died. A Jane Williams, also known as Melanie Magilton. So again, after a long period of failing health, Mr. Richard Boyer dies in December of 2015 at the age of 63. And he joins a large group of young men who also died in his family. And then the project that he's working on, this real estate project, just falls into ruins. So the documentary entitled Snuff Hill is a very important documentary to watch. And in part 29, there is a series of photographs taken off the Hillsborough Police Department's Facebook page and the Hillsborough Fire Department's Facebook page. And for some reason, it was a big joke over there. So go ahead and watch the Snuff Hill documentary and let me know if you think it's nothing but a big joke in Hillsborough too. I have never seen a more evil place than Hillsborough, that has more clues, that has more proof, that has more evidence that something very wrong is happening there. And I'm going to guess that they hate independent contractors and independent real estate guys like Richard Boyer and his son, his nephew, and his brother. So both Ed Magilton and Melanie Magilton are both professional actors. Ed Magilton's name is Stephen Root. I recognized him in a movie called Everything Must Go. He had a small part in that movie. So this woman here, Melanie Magilton, goes by the actress name Amy Smart. So if you look at this video right here, here is Melanie Magilton at one of my daughter's basketball games in 2018. And she's over here standing by the door with a group of people. And if you notice, she's gained a little weight. I believe that Amy Smart also may act as Sia. So Sia was supposedly a singer, but the truth is that the artist known as Sia is actually several different women who all play that role. I guess some may have the ability to sing, while others are just actors who know how to lip sync or know how to dance around in a video. But Amy Smart, also known as Melanie Magilton, is one of the women who act as Sia.
Tell me about why you're here tonight.
Well, I'm a big queer, and so I'm really into all of that, anything that can support the queer community. And why else? Last year... pooped, and it's perfect. I've worked out in the last couple of years that I'm shy.
Compared to a lot of female artists.
Oh, yeah? Tell me who else. Anyone else? I'm always flattered. I get anxious when I'm ambushed or approached by someone who I don't know, and they're giving me compliments. It makes me feel uncomfortable.
It is an important message, and it's one certainly that we have been doing a lot to cover. We do want to get to your performance because we are really excited to have you here. We want to, because we are really excited to have you here. We want to, because we are really excited to have you here. We want to, because we are.
I have a video called Hall Cross Cult that has to do with people who are supposedly related to my father, who's another agent of the MK Ultra program. And he had this photo album on his coffee table of a family reunion that happened in 2019. And I was looking at it when I was over his house one day, and I noticed that half the people in the photo album were strangers. I noticed that I did not recognize half the people in this photo album. There were quite a few new faces, including this individual, who appears to be Sia. But this may be Melanie Magilton, and she's gained a little weight. Her neck has gotten a little bit bigger. She may have gotten a chest implant to increase the size of her chest. So it is March. It is the end of March of 2022. And the last time I saw this Melanie Magilton, it was January and February of 2022. And she was working at a gas station. And the last 2 times I went in there, she says to me, "You look very familiar. Are you from around here?" And I said, "Yeah, I live about 10 minutes away." And then she started to ask me a bunch of questions. She goes, "Your voice sounds so familiar. You remind me of somebody. I know you from somewhere." So I really do not know why she was saying that. Maybe it was a come on. Maybe she wanted me to tell her something about my website on the internet. But she looked identical to this real estate agent, Jane Williams. She has very wide, piercing eyes. And as I was standing in line to hand her money for the gas, she would kind of glare at you with this very wide-eyed, piercing look, as if she was inviting you to have some sort of staring contest with her. So she has gained a lot of weight. It looks like she's been lifting weights. And the way she was acting very aggressive. I would not be surprised to learn that she's taking steroids and is working out in the gym. So this is Melanie Magilton, who went to the same high school as I did in the early 90s in Connecticut. And then in 2015, when I moved up to this rural area in New Hampshire, I see her working at my town's post office. And then when I am doing a very important investigation into the town of Hillsborough, I find her photograph. It said, "For more information, you could contact Jane Williams." And when I looked her up, she is none other than Melanie Magilton, Ed Magilton's daughter. And if you remember, Ed Magilton was also a real estate agent. And I see that the real estate developer, this land developer, has died in his 60s, right in the middle of a real estate project. So maybe some of you could look at the Magiltons here and identify them as other public figure roles that they might have. But Ed Magilton's professional actor name is Stephen Root. And Melanie Magilton's professional actor name is Amy Smart. And she also plays the role of Sia, along with several other women. So my guess is she has a few different roles that she may play. For all I know, she is the Prime Minister of Sweden. So not only do they act in Hollywood, I wouldn't be surprised if they hold office as some political figure in whatever country. And not only do they do that, they're also into organized crime. The MK Ultra program is into organized crime. That is what the military is into. And they employ organized crime tactics. And a lot of this has to do with real estate, taking over people's land or taking over people's savings accounts by ripping them off through real estate. So if you are a successful family and you move into a house where the military has placed black mold spores all throughout that house, all in the windows, all in your heater, all in your carpet, and you move in, after about a year, the mold will begin to spread all throughout your house and grows more dense and is releasing spores into the air. And this causes the family to get sick. This causes psychosis. This causes them to lose their jobs. This causes them to lose their health. This causes them to make errors, to lose their judgment. And at that point, they could very easily be manipulated through the MK Ultra program. And they end up losing everything. This is happening on a wide scale all across America. They can't wait to attack another American family and then do terrible things to them. These people are disturbed people. They have severe psychological problems. So I would like to tell you now that New Hampshire is the epicenter for occult activity. It is the epicenter for these elitists, for these insiders to go to pay money to view these snuff shows or murder shows. This is probably the worst state in the United States. So this is where you are going to find people like the Magiltons,